one non-profit organization is taking a bold step for the environment. Makesense PH targets to keep plastic out of our oceans, homes, and meals for good. Let's hear more about NOYPI, or the No Other Year for Plastic Initiative 2025. We're joined by Carlos Hechanova and Alicia Magtuto on the final word. Thank you so much for joining us. Alicia, let me start off with you. Give us a sense, how serious is this plastics problem in the Philippines?
Oh, well, thank you, Rico. It's a very serious problem, actually. There have been studies conducted by local organizations like Gaia that have mentioned that the average Filipino uses 591 pieces of sachets, which amounts to 164 million sachets used every day, scaling to about 59.7 billion pieces per year. So it's definitely a huge problem that we'd like to address in the next 5 years.
59 billion in a year. Carlos, with Alicia stating all of these facts, it makes me feel sad on what we have all done to our environment. Every waste that we dispose of has an impact on you, me, and our personal well-being.
You're absolutely right, Rico. And this is why this is a challenge that we want to address, because this is something that affects everyone. And when we look towards what's happening with our plastics in the ocean, the next question is, well, how do we come up with a solution? And this is where things get tricky. Depending on who you're going to ask, it's going to be some parties saying like, look, this is what's being demanded by consumers. The Philippines is a sachet economy, and so we have to produce sachets. But if you talk to someone else, they're going to say that, look, when I go to sari-sari stores or I go to groceries, I only see sachets. These are the only options that I have. I need more options. So, the question there is, who's responsible? And Makesense is not, what Makesense finds more interesting is how can we come up with solutions? Because we know that each actor in society, each party that is having to deal with the sachet problem has some key to the problem, has some piece to solving this issue in the Philippines.
Right. So Alicia, this initiative called NOYPI, or the No Other Year for Plastic Initiative 2025. Why 2025? And what do you hope to achieve in 5 years?
So this is a very complex problem that we understand we cannot solve immediately. That's why in the next 5 years, we would like to be able to have found out more about the problem, have created a solution that we can test here in Metro Manila, and then in the next 5 years, we see that we will be able to apply the solution nationally, so within the whole Philippines.
So you hope to gather a lot of data and try to convince private and policymakers that, we have to solve this plastic problem. But, Carlos, there's already so much data out there. But policymakers have been slow to act on this plastic crisis. What makes you think that you'll be able to do something by 2025?
And that's a good point to make, Rico, right? Because when we look at the data that's out there on how plastics are being used, there's really, really good data that we have that policymakers are using. And a lot of this data is geared towards what happens to plastics, once people use them, where do they end up? Where we need more data is on what are the barriers to solutions to employing alternatives to plastic sachets in sari-sari stores and groceries and so on. So the barrier there for policymakers is that, yes, we have the data, but we also need piloted solutions. We need concrete proof that solutions exist out there and can be scaled. They can be applied to a local scale, to a national scale, and even to a regional scale. And this is what's missing for policymakers to be more empowered right now. And this is what we're trying to create with NOYPI 2025. Not only do we want the data on how we can create solutions, but we want to pilot these initial solutions to prove that everyone that, yes, it's possible to imagine a future in 2025 where we won't see sachets anymore in our sari-sari stores. We won't see sachets littered anymore in our streets and our beaches and so on. It's this concrete action towards developing solutions, which is what NOYPI wants to do.
So, Alicia, I think what we really have to do, these are broad stroke solutions, but let's start from the basics. How do we keep these plastics out of our homes and meals for good?
That's a very good question. As Carlos had mentioned, it often seems like a chicken and egg situation
Yeah.
wherein is it because there are no alternatives available, or is it because people can't afford to make the switch? So the reason why we would like to approach this through the solution that we've created is we would like to understand the bigger picture of this problem. And to do that, we really need on the ground data. We really need data from people who have already conducted research on this problem. So we need to listen to all sides. We need to listen to the basic consumers who consume these single-use plastics. We need to listen to sari-sari store owners who make it available to them. And then we need to listen to the people who have already attempted solutions to this problem and understand what made it so difficult for them to apply these solutions, to apply this in a larger scale, to apply this nationally.
And Carlos, briefly before we let you go, no, it is really indeed commendable what Makesense PH is doing to eliminate single-use plastics. But there are also cities here in the country that have implemented incentives. Like Quezon City has a trash to cash back initiative. Do incentives like these work?
So yes, to a degree, Rico, these incentives work. And to answer your previous question before, how do we keep these plastics out of our neighborhoods? And that question is basically kind of pointing towards recycling, right? Having a place in our communities, a place in our society. But what's even better than figuring out how to recycle, because that takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of management, is to simply eliminate the use of plastic sachets in our daily lifestyles, right? So this is why with NOYPI 2025, we're really looking to explore alternatives to sachet, whether these are in reuse or refill and so on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alicia and Carlos, for joining us on The Final Word from Makesense PH and their initiative of NOYPI 2025.